Okay guys, so there's a good bit to go through in this one because what we're looking at is called factorizing in algebra. When we factorize in algebra, we have 5 different types of factorization. HCF, or highest common factor, grouping, difference of two squares, quadratic, or difference of two cubes. HCF is kind of our default one that we use when nothing else works. We use grouping when there's 4 terms. We use difference of two squares when there's 2 terms and that they're taken away from each other and they're both squared numbers. We use quadratic when it's a quadratic trinomial, so when there's 3 terms. We use difference of two cubes when we have 2 cubes like this. And we're going to go through this formula now in 2 seconds. First, we're going to look at a few examples of the ones we would have done for junior cert. So our first example here is we have 4 pi r squared plus 6 pi r. Now what I would say is there's no 2 squares. 6 is not a square number. There isn't enough terms to do grouping or quadratic factorizing, which means we have to do highest common factor. 4 and 6, the biggest number that divides into both of them is 2. And I can see that they both have a pi and they both have an or. So 2 by 2 gives me 4. We already have our pi, and or by or gives me or squared. Plus 2 by 3 gives me 6. We have pi, we have or, so we just need h. Okay? So now that's our highest common factor done. In the next one, I see we have 4 terms, which means we need to use grouping. So I'd look at the first 2 terms and see what they have in common. 8 and 4 both have 4 as a highest common factor, and they both have the letter a. So I have 4a, and now I find my other factors. So 4 by 2 gives me 8, and it's missing an x. I have a plus in between, and the only thing missing from this one is y. Now I see these both have a minus, so I'm going to pull out my minus. 3 is my highest common factor, and they both have a b, so I'm going to pull out b. So we have the minus. 3 by 2 gives me 6. We have b, so I need x. 3, so a minus by a plus gives me a minus. 3 we have, b we have, so we just need y. Our 2 brackets like this should always be the same in grouping because our last step is now we have 4a minus 3b, and we have 2x plus y. It's like the opposite of multiplying. Usually we split the bracket and split up the first bracket and times by the second. This time we're working backwards. For example 3 here, we have 36x squared minus 25y squared. What I would say is 36, the square root of 36 is 6, the square root of 25 is 5, so we have 2 square numbers, so I'm going to do difference of 2 squares. So I square 6x to get 36x squared, and I square 5y to get 25y squared, which means my first bracket is going to be 6x minus 5y, and my second bracket is going to be 6x plus 5y. And that's my answer there. The last one I have is what's called a quadratic trinomial, which means I have 3 terms with an x squared, an x, and a constant. To factorize this, I need 2 sets of brackets, and in each bracket I need an x. Then I look at my factors. So we take our 6 first. I have 6 and 1 and 2 and 3. And when I look at 15, I have 15 times 1 and 3 times 5. Okay? Now I tend to think it's usually the lower ones that we need to use for this. So to do this one, I'm going to try 2 and 3, and then see which factors here can help me to get plus 1x. Okay? So when I'm looking at these, I can see that I know I need to have this number times 3 and 2x times this number. So if I put 5 here and 3 here, let's give it a go. 3 by 3x is 9x. 2 by 5x is 10x. That worked out well, because now I can have a plus 10x and a minus 9x to give me plus 1x, which means I'm going to have a minus here and a plus here, and my final answer here is going to then be 2x minus 3 and 3x plus 5. And that's how we factorize using a quadratic. The last one we're going to do, guys, is looking at our formula for the difference of 2 cubes. Again, these are formula that are not in our log tables, so we need to know them. We have x cubed minus y cubed is equal to x squared minus y by x squared plus xy plus y squared. X cubed plus y cubed equals x plus y, x squared minus y squared plus y squared. You'll see the signs are the only things that change. So when I have 64c cubed minus 125d cubed, the first thing I check is, well, to get 64 I need 4, to be cubed. So we have 4c to be cubed. Minus 125d to be cubed, I know I have 5d to be cubed. Because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Which means in my formula, I'm going to be using the first one because it's minus. Everywhere I see x, I'm going to put 4c. And everywhere I see y, I'm going to put 5d. So that means my first bracket is going to be 4c minus 5d. And my second bracket is going to be 4c to be squared plus 4c by 5d plus 5d to be squared. Okay? Now, sorry, that's not very clear. Tissue. Plus 5d to be squared. Okay? Now, that means my first bracket stays 4c minus 5d. 4c to be squared gives me 16c squared. 4c by 5d gives me 20cd. And 5d squared gives me 25d squared. And that's, guys, how we use difference of two cubes. The only difference is if there was a plus in between, we would need to use the plus formula. Okay?